Hi, listen to the free audio story that was taken from Reddit. Daniel Parker had always considered himself a good husband. He and Emily had been married for nearly 10 years, built a beautiful home together, and shared a quiet, predictable life in the suburbs. Emily was warm and devoted, always keeping their home immaculate, preparing his favorite meals, and ensuring their schedules ran smoothly. Yet, despite the picture-perfect facade, something had shifted in their marriage over the past year. It started subtly. The long silences between them. The way Emily's laughter seemed to fade rather than ring through their home. The absence of late-night conversations they once cherished. Daniel found himself yearning for something he couldn't quite define: excitement, passion, or maybe just a reminder that he was still desired. And then, there was her Samantha Reed. Samantha had joined Daniel's firm 6 months ago. She was intelligent, confident, and exuded an effortless charm. While Daniel had always maintained a professional distance from his female colleagues, Samantha was different. She challenged him, laughed at his dry humor, and seemed genuinely interested in his ideas. He found himself lingering at work a little longer, hoping for conversations that extended past client meetings and spreadsheets. One evening, as they prepared for a presentation, Samantha placed a hand on his arm, a fleeting touch that sent a current through him. "You're brilliant, you know that," she said, her eyes locked on his. Daniel chuckled, brushing off the compliment, but that moment lingered with him for days. It was a feeling he hadn't had in years, the rush of being seen, appreciated, wanted. What started as innocent conversations evolved into lingering glances, subtle touches, and the kind of chemistry that neither of them acknowledged aloud. Daniel told himself it was harmless, that he would never cross a line. But temptation has a way of making the forbidden feel inevitable. It happened after an office celebration. The team had gone out for drinks, and as the evening wound down, only Daniel and Samantha remained. She leaned in, close enough for him to catch the scent of her perfume. "I don't want to go home yet," she admitted, her voice soft, laced with something unspoken. Neither did he. They ended up in a dimly lit hotel bar, sipping whiskey, the air between them thick with tension. One moment they were talking about work, the next, her fingers were tracing the rim of her glass. Her gaze locked onto his. And then, in a moment of reckless abandon, he leaned in. The kiss was slow, deliberate, filled with all the pent-up longing he had suppressed for months. When they pulled away, breathless, neither spoke. They both knew what this meant. What door had just been flung open? After that night, everything changed. Daniel had never considered himself the kind of man who could live a double life. But here he was rushing home to Emily with guilt-ridden apologies for late nights at the office, while stealing moments of passion with Samantha in between conference calls. At home, Emily noticed the shift. "You've been different lately," she said one evening as they lay in bed. Distant. Daniel turned to her, forcing a smile. "Work has been stressful." She studied him for a moment before nodding, but he could see the doubt in her eyes. Emily had always been intuitive, and he knew it was only a matter of time before she pieced things together. Yet, he couldn't stop. The thrill of Samantha was intoxicating, a fire he couldn't extinguish. And so, he continued playing the role of devoted husband, while living a secret life that was bound to unravel. Balancing two lives became an art Daniel perfected. Mornings belonged to Emily, breakfast shared over quiet exchanges and feigned normalcy. Afternoons were spent in the office, where Samantha's presence was both a distraction and an addiction. Nights were divided, some spent at home, some spent under the pretense of business trips, where stolen hours with Samantha felt like an escape from reality. But lies are like cracks in glass. They spread, weaken, and eventually shatter everything in their path. One evening, as Daniel and Samantha sat in a rooftop lounge overlooking the city, she traced patterns on his palm and whispered, "Do you ever think about leaving her?" Daniel hesitated. He hadn't allowed himself to entertain that thought seriously. "It's complicated." Samantha sighed, pulling away slightly. I don't want to be a secret forever. That was the first time he felt the weight of what he had created pressing down on him. It happened on an ordinary Tuesday. Daniel had been careless to many text messages, a scent that wasn't Emily's lingering on his clothes. That evening, as he walked through the door, he found Emily sitting at the kitchen table, his phone in her hands. Her face was pale, her eyes wet with unused tears. Who is she? His stomach plummeted. He opened his mouth, searching for a lie, an excuse, but none came, because deep down, he knew this moment had been inevitable. He started. But Emily shook her head, standing abruptly. Don't. Just don't. Her voice broke, and in that instant, the weight of his betrayal crushed him. The following weeks were a blur of tense conversations, cold silences, and aching regret. Emily didn't scream, didn't throw things. Her pain was quieter, more devastating. She simply withdrew. The love they had spent years building slipping through their fingers like sand. Samantha, sensing the shift, pulled away too. I never wanted to be the reason you lost everything, she admitted before walking away for good. And just like that, Daniel was left with nothing but the ruins of what he had so carelessly destroyed. With Emily gone and Samantha distancing herself, Daniel found himself drowning in solitude. The empty house echoed with reminders of a life he had taken for granted. He thought of reaching out to Emily. But what could he possibly say? Sorry was not enough to mend what he had shattered. He buried himself in work, but the distractions were hollow. Friends he had once confided in now viewed him with judgment. Loneliness settled into his bones like an old ache that wouldn't fade. Months passed, and the divorce papers came. Emily refused to engage in drawn-out arguments. He simply wanted a clean break. As Daniel sat in their now empty home, he realized the cost of his choices. The thrill had faded, the passion extinguished, leaving only regret in its wake. A fractured vow, a broken family, a love lost to the reckless pursuit of something fleeting. And in the end, he was left wondering if the momentary thrill had ever been worth it at all.